18, and I was just I had a couple little jobs. And I was in college, and one of my jobs was working at an after-school daycare for little kids. And that's where my love for kids started. Don't quote me on that, please. And you can learn a lot from kids, though. That's why I like kids. They're really pure of heart, and or they're little animals. It depends on which kid you know. But they don't have a lot of thought in what they're doing. They're just going. They're just living. And so, but you can learn these little lessons from them that they don't even know they're teaching you. And so there was one day where I was standing outside. A lot of daycare. It was like kids would go to school. It'd be like 3:30 or whatever. They would get off school. Their parents were at 5 or whatever would come pick them up. So there was this 1.5, 2 hour gap. My job was just to stand there, watch them play, and make sure they didn't kill each other or kill me or another teacher. Again, they're not thinking, they're just going. And so I'm standing there watching these kids play basketball. There were some 3rd and 4th graders on the blacktop outside, and they were grabbing the ball and they were going to the free throw line. And they were standing back to the basket and they were trying to make it over their head. And they're missing every single shot. No one made it. But they're having a really good time. It's a hard shot, but they're having a good time trying. And so I'm just watching them, and I'm standing on the sidelines with this kid next to me. His name is Nathan. I don't remember anyone else's name, but I remember Nathan. And we're not saying anything, we're just standing there. And then at one point, Nathan feels compelled just to yell out to the other kids. He says, "Why are you even trying that? You're never going to make it. It's impossible." Isn't it funny how it's always the people on the sidelines trying to tell us what we can and can't do? It's not like Nathan was out there with the other kids and tried 50 times and then came to a conclusion that maybe this is impossible. He was just standing next to me on the sidelines watching. So what's interesting to me is that not only did he come to the conclusion that this was impossible even when he wasn't trying, he also felt compelled to believe that himself, but then even compelled to tell all the other kids that they can't do that either. And it's not that Nathan was trying to be a bully, I don't think. That wasn't really his nature. I think Nathan was feeling insecure about himself. I think he was feeling like he wasn't sure that he'd be able to make that shot. And what he really wanted, deep down inside, what he really wanted is to step onto the court and go try. But he was afraid to do that. And so his logical solution was, instead of feeling bad about himself being on the sidelines, if he could convince the other kids that this is impossible, then he wouldn't have to step out there and try and make a fool of himself. And if he could get the other kids to stop, then he wouldn't have to feel bad for being on the sidelines, because why would you even try if it's impossible? And like he's a child, he's not thinking through all this stuff like I am now, but I'm an adult just watching like, oh, this is good, like what's happening? And so it's just going through my head, like, I identified a teachable moment. That's what we call it in the daycare biz, is a teachable moment. And so when I saw this happening, I didn't say anything to Nathan. I'm pretty good at basketball at this point, by the way. I was 18. I've been playing my whole life since I was 5. I'd made my fair share of circus shots. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. And so I didn't say anything. I just walk out onto the court. And the cool thing about being a teacher with little kids is when you play, they are so excited. Like nothing could be more exciting than the teacher coming to play. And so I go over there, I pick up a ball. I'm still not saying anything, but they're all just cheering, Mr. Dustin, try to make a shot. And I don't say anything. And I just start walking over to the free throw line. Nathan's over there sweating bullets, just watching, see what's going to happen. And then I kind of just have a moment of like, let's just make this more interesting. So I keep walking, and I walk to the three-point line. And then I figure if I'm going to try from the three-point line, I might as well try from half court. So I continue walking. I go all the way to half court, and all the kids just eyes on me. And I remember thinking at this moment, like, what a great story this would be if I make this shot. Like, one, for just my own pride, like how awesome, but then also for all these kids watching this like scene like from a movie unfold. But what's also interesting is I had the thought of like I wanted to make it, I was hopeful, but then I had the thought like, well, if I miss it, it doesn't really matter. The expectation of all the kids out there is that I will miss. They've all been missing for half an hour. So the expectation is that I'm going to miss, and I purposely made it harder. I like walked out further. There was a 0.00001% chance that ball would go in, but if I missed, it didn't matter. I would just meet the expectations of the room. But if I made it, I could change some lives or have a cool story to tell later. And so I'm over there. I take a knee for dramatic effect. I take the ball, and I just launch it in the air. Now, all the kids are watching. And I'm just, like, hoping for a miracle. And, like, can you imagine? Okay, if it goes in, I'm just thinking of this the whole time. The ball's in the air. I'm just watching silently. Like, the kids are going to go crazy if this goes in. I'm going to get to rub it in I'll inspire Nathan. And it's going to go in. The kids are going to cheer. They're going to, like, build statues of me out of rocks and Elmer's glue. I don't know. But I just, like, I kept having this, like, it's going to go in. It's going to go in. And then God smiled on me on that day, and the ball goes through the hoop, nothing but net. And I'm still standing at half court. And all the kids are going crazy. And at this point, Nathan's kind of starting to walk over to me. Just his mouth is open. He's just confused more than anything. And if you've ever seen how basketball hoops are outside, they're like it's just all outdoor court. So it's a big old pole that runs from the hoop down into the ground so that there's cement, because there's wind and stuff outside, so you don't want them falling over on killing kids. That's one of my rules. You don't kill kids. And so the ball hits this pole, and it rolls perfectly back to me, still standing at half court. And I pick up the ball, and Nathan's on his way over to me. I just take a couple steps toward him. I hand him the ball, and I go, "Nothing's impossible." Isn't this the weirdest story you've ever heard? It gets weirder. Nathan went on to play in the NBA. I'm just kidding. But the rest of it, 100% true. 100% true, the rest of it. But it was just the craziest story ever. But what's interesting to me is, like, in moments like that, I feel like it gives us that little bit of hope that we sometimes lose, whether we're the ones doing those big things or we're witnessing someone do something that's a big thing. But there's always that person on the sidelines trying to tell you what you can and can't achieve. And sometimes it's even you. Maybe sometimes you're the person on the sidelines telling other people what they can and can't do because you haven't allowed yourself to step onto the court yet. Have you ever had someone in your life tell you that you can or can't do something? Maybe, like, you can't do that, you're too small. You can't do that, you're too big. You're too old, you're too young, you don't have enough money, you don't have the connections. You've never done this before, you don't have experience. Why are you even trying? Just don't. Life can be simple. Just do what you're already doing. You already know how to do some stuff. Just keep doing that. I feel like we all have those people in our lives, and sometimes it's our own brain. We set goals so often based on what our current capacities are, our current capabilities, rather than setting goals based on what our future capabilities can be. If we remember that we can always learn, we can always grow, we can always get better. Have you ever asked a caterpillar how far it wants to fly one day? It will tell you it can't fly, and it's right. It does not have wings yet. But a metamorphosis is coming, transformation is coming, but it has to persist through the process. It has to go into its cocoon. It has to do the work. But if you commit to doing the work, you can dream bigger dreams because you know you have the capacity to grow. And so that's a little bit what I want to talk about today. But belief is important. A lot of this story is about just believing that you can do something or trying something because it could be possible. But belief without action bears no fruit. You have to be willing to do work and stretch yourself and grow in order for what now seems impossible to become possible. When we do, possible to impossible, there's this bridge. And we can dream all day long, but if we don't do the work that gets us in the car and gets us across that bridge, we can dream big dreams all day and it just doesn't matter. Like, you're just going to be delirious, which maybe is a fun place to live. I don't know. Maybe I'll try that. But I'd rather commit to things that are bigger than I know how to do and work to get toward them. So I want to share a few things today, 3 things that have helped me as I'm going through this process. And again, I think it's a lifelong process. I'm not perfect at these things, but they're just little things that have helped me, and you might get 1 or 2 things out of it. So the first one is commit to mastering your craft. Commit to mastering your craft. Because again, blind confidence without skill is just a falsity. We don't want to be delusional. We don't want to be arrogant. We don't want to think we can do something just because we are, and we are who we are. That's great self-confidence, but it's arrogance if you're not doing anything to actually get better. In biblical times, like a couple thousand years ago, being a silversmith was a really, really cool job. I kind of miss that. I mean, well, I wasn't around for it, but you know what I mean? Like, you just like work really hard at something, and that's what you do. But silversmiths, like today we have all these tools, this technology, it makes it a pretty straightforward process, like machines do it. But silversmiths back then, they had to study and work and apprentice for sometimes decades to get good enough to be able to purify silver the way they needed to. And the good ones would have the wealthy people coming to them, bringing them these bits of silver. So kind of how the process worked was the wealthy people would bring these bits of silver, silversmith would put it in this giant furnace, and then they would melt it up, and they'd stir it up, and it would become liquid. But through that process, because they're trying to mold it into new jewelry or whatever they're making. Through that process, these little impurities, imperfections would rise to the top. It could be dirt, it could be little rocks, whatever. And part of their job, because wealthy people had high standards, just like they do now, yeah. And so part of that process was getting those impurities out so that the silver could be pure. But it wasn't like, it's not like when you get something in your cereal bowl and you just kind of scoop it out and like, oh, rest is good, and you throw all the milk out with it. You can't do that. They had to be very precise. It was a trade that was highly technical. And so they had to be willing to do sometimes decades of work to get that good, to be able to fulfill their purpose and their role as a silversmith. And I think this is kind of an interesting way to look at ourselves, because sometimes we want to be the silversmith, but we don't want to do what it takes to become the silversmith. We want to dream the big dream of being a silversmith without being able to just go through the crap we don't want to go through to get there. But also from the silver's point of view, if it had a brain, it had to be willing to take all the broken pieces of itself, allow itself to be melted down so it could be formed into something new. Something new with less impurities. You can't clean the impurities if you haven't melted down yet because you're hardened. So being willing to reinvent yourself in order to be rebuilt. So in a lot of ways, we're the silversmith, but we're also the silver. I think that's an interesting way to look at mastering our crafts. So a practical way to do that, if you don't want to become a silversmith, take 30 minutes a day, commit 30 minutes a day to practicing a skill or learning something new that's going to get you closer to where you're trying to go. It's pretty simple. I tend to be an all or nothing kind of guy, so sometimes I'll be like, all right, I'm going to do it 4 hours every day. I'm going to learn. And then I do it the first day, and then I'm burned out and I never do it again. So 30 minutes, don't try to be a hero, 30 minutes a day of learning, practicing a skill or learning something new to get you where you're trying to go. All right, number 2, commit to optimism. Commit to optimism. How many of you feel like you're natural-born optimists? Okay, like a 1% of the room. Yeah, that's about what I expected. I'm just going to assume the rest of you are pessimists or somewhere in the middle. All right, I want you to look at the screen real quick. Don't read it out loud, just read that in your head. Okay, so now there are 2 groups of people in here. The first group is going to read this like this. Opportunity is nowhere. The optimists in the room are going to read it like this. Opportunity is now here. Exact same word, exact same structure. It's just how we perceive it. Our perspective matters on how we look at things in life, and we can look at it from a positive light or a negative light. It doesn't always even change the thing. Sometimes it just changes how we feel about it. All right, here's another good one. You are unique just like everyone else. Aww. That's nice. So the optimists are going to be focusing on you are unique, you are unique, you are unique, you are special, you are good. The pessimists are going to be saying, I'm just like everyone else. What's the point? Same sentence, different focus. What's interesting to me about negativity is that our brains are actually wired to go there automatically. Scientists have said that we have negative brains
because the way that they were designed were for us to keep away from danger, right? So like kind of keep us on our toes. Like, who's that? Who's over there? What's happening? Like, make sure you don't get attacked. I don't know about you. I haven't been attacked by any bears or lions or dinosaurs recently. I think we can calm down just a little bit, and we can get used to the fact that we can be a little more positive. Everybody agree? Okay, good. So let's move forward with that. So our brains go there, but what is worse, they automatically think negative. So we have a idea or a thought. Our brain automatically goes from A to Z of negativity. It's just the way that it is. But the more often we do it, which is almost always if we're not doing anything else deliberately, the more often it happens, it strengthens the neurological pathways between point A and point Z to make our brains go faster. Our brains are machines that are built for speed. They're built to learn. They're built to handle a lot. So they try to be it tries to be efficient. So it's going from it's saying, if you're always going to do this, I'm just going to build this pathway and we're going to make it strong. A new layer of asphalt every time. Let's just make it simple. So we're naturally negative, and because we're naturally negative, we think that a lot. We think negative, and then that pathway gets strengthened. So it kind of seems like, what's the point? How do we even get out of that? But the interesting thing is that positivity works the exact same way. Because our brains can learn, because we have power over our brains, we can strengthen the pathway from going from idea to positive the same way we can idea to negative. But we have to be more deliberate because it's not natural. I feel blessed because I think I was born optimistic. It's gotten me in a lot of trouble in my adult life, but it's also made life more adventurous, as I like to call it. But when I was a kid, my mom likes to tell this story. I was 2 years old, and I have there's three brothers, me and my two older brothers. My oldest brother is about 6.5 years older than me. His name is Kelsey. And Kelsey had these kind of like Lego things, but they were called constructs. Does anyone remember those things? Yeah, Chase remembers. They're kind of like, they're not like Legos, but they work kind of the same. You know, you build stuff out of them, and I really liked them, and he would never let me play with them, probably because I was 2, and I would break them every time I'd play with them. But he wasn't home, so that was irrelevant information. So I went up to my mom, and I tugged on her shirt, and I said, "Mom, can I play with Kelsey's constructs?" And she looked down at me, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't think he would want you to." And I looked up, and I said, "Well, what if he does?" And I think I was manipulating her. But but that was a really positive way to push it. Like, I don't know, maybe he does. He's not here. And so I think that's just been natural for me, but I know we're not all like that, and I fall into patterns all the time of negativity. So how do we get from being naturally inclined to be negative to start strengthening our neurological pathways with positivity? There's 2 really good ways that I've seen work well. One is quit complaining. Gosh, we complain all the time. I complain so much. The past week, the amount of times I complained to my wife, Jackie, is probably 1,000, because things go wrong all the time. And even like planning a small event like this, little things happen over and over and over and over again. And I'm just in a just bad mood complaining. And then yesterday, I told her, I said, I'm giving a talk, and part of it's on not complaining, so don't allow me to complain, please, for the rest of the day. Call me out. So get accountability buddy if you need, but have someone who's going to call you out for complaining, because it's strengthening that pathway. It's negative, it's negative, it's negative. We have to get out of that. So stop complaining and try to look for silver lining. Another way is, and this is kind of the main way that I think is biologically works well, research has shown that it takes about 15 seconds of positive thinking or 15 seconds of gratitude to actually release the chemicals in the brain where we feel those feelings, where we feel positive, we feel good, because we're naturally inclined to negativity. So you can't just think a negative thought and then be like, oh, never mind, it's going to be fine. It doesn't release any chemicals in your brain. It doesn't strengthen that pathway. You have to focus on something you're grateful for or something positive for 15 seconds consecutively. It's a lot of effort sometimes. You might even sweat. But what's cool about the brain is the more you do it, the faster you get. So then it doesn't take 15 seconds anymore. It doesn't take this effort of trying to, go through a whole negative cycle and then realize, oh, I've been negative for 6 days in a row. I need to start thinking positive. Eventually, your brain just starts going to the positive. And so then it's easy to focus for 15 seconds if that's what you have to do, because you're already going there. Like a practical application, I think about this a lot. For me, I might have a week of, I do a lot of sales calls and I do a lot of sales emails. And if you've ever done sales before, it can be really discouraging because you just get told no about 1,000 times a week. And you can't let the no stop you because that's the whole, it's like a game. It's like an inside game all salespeople know. You have to push through the no. But if I allow myself to be negative, I'll give up. I think that's everyone's nature. If you allow yourself to sit in the negative, it's too easy to give up. But when I have those moments of realizing like this has been a terrible week, what I can do is think, oh, but I have a handful of great clients who really like the work we're doing, and I love working with them, and it's been such a great experience. And they said yes, so I'm going to find some more of those. And just that little step of using a negative trigger to get yourself to think positive or be grateful for something can cause you to be more positive on a regular basis because your brain is going to start doing the heavy lifting for you, which is what we want to do. So that's number 2. And number 3 is commit to your discomfort zone. This is the one everyone hates more than not complaining. Commit to your discomfort zone. Discomfort is subjective, and it's fluid. What's uncomfortable for me is not necessarily uncomfortable for you, and same for you and me. There are probably a few of you in here who would rather die than stand up here right now. It's not making me uncomfortable because I've done it before, but 5 years ago, I would have rather died. And there are things you do on a daily basis that I would dread doing, but because you've done them before and you've allowed yourself to stretch, it's now a part of your comfort zone. I want you to think of your comfort zone as a literal zone. So if this is your comfort zone, and you live in the middle of it, and you do nothing except what you've already been doing always, what makes you comfortable and fuzzy, it's going to stay like this. But if you step outside of your comfort zone and you live in your discomfort zone, you can pull it, you can stretch it to where it starts to expand, and now it's no longer that things are not uncomfortable anymore. It's that the level and amount of things you can handle emotionally and physically has expanded. Your comfort zone has expanded, and that only happens by stepping outside of it and pulling it. We have to be deliberate about stretching our comfort zones. Let's look back at our friend the caterpillar. I've known for a while now, and I think most of you have, that caterpillars turn into butterflies. Yeah, common knowledge? I knew there'd be one of you. We'll talk after. And but what I didn't know until recently is kind of that middle stage, like what happens in the cocoon. Because I always just thought, okay, they're crawling around and they get bored and start spitting out silk or whatever they do, and then they hibernate for a while and then they butterfly. But what's happening inside the cocoon is they literally turn to gross liquid goo into a beautiful butterfly, bust out of the cocoon, and fly. And I think, we mighty humans, we're so afraid of even the slightest discomfort, we'll stay in our cocoon all day, not knowing what's on the outside, and complain about not evolving or not getting any better at anything. We have to be comfortable in the goo stage to grow our wings. We have to. So let's look at a couple ways to do that. One is to do something uncomfortable every morning. So within the first hour of your day, because that's when you're most mentally strong, do something uncomfortable that you're not used to doing. And it's going to change and evolve. For me lately, it's been cold showers. Anyone else do cold showers? Or tried them before? We've all tried them, like on accident when the heater's broken. But I mean, like, have you tried it? It's pretty uncomfortable, but for me, what I've noticed is I've been doing them every day for about 2 months now. And at first, when you turn it cold, it's like you have this moment of like, oh God, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. And then you have to force yourself to just crank it and take it. But over time, you start just not dreading it anymore. You know what to expect. It's now a part of your comfort zone. So now I just, like, when it's time, I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's going to be freezing. And I crank it, and it happens to me, but my body is started adjusting to it, so now it doesn't even feel cold anymore, and I'm not afraid of it anymore. So it's like I need to find a new thing now to make me uncomfortable. But that's the game, is find something that you're uncomfortable with now and make yourself start to feel comfortable with it by just a deliberate daily action of something uncomfortable. All right, here's another one. Say yes to things you don't know how to do yet. And this is a really hard one for a lot of us. It's hard for me too. We like to say yes to things we're 100% sure we know how to do because it's comfortable. But if we never allow ourselves to commit to something that's outside of our comfort zone, we're not going to get better, right? But these opportunities often don't just fall in our laps. It's not like people are always asking us to do uncomfortable things. We have to be willing to seek out these things that we don't know how to do yet, commit to things, and commit to it. And by committing, I mean decide you're going to do it and then start working toward it. A lot of times we're like this balloon. If you ask this balloon to float in the air, eventually, just float in the air someday, how long do you think it's going to take for it to do anything? It's never going to do anything. It has no reason to. You just kind of told it to, or it had an idea. Maybe I'll float one day. So just having the idea of wanting to do something outside of our comfort zone is not what makes any change happen. We have to get better at setting deadlines, committing to deadlines of actual growth to where we have to stretch ourselves. If I tell this balloon, you have to start floating in the next 60 seconds. Now it's going to start thinking, okay, what do? I need to get a little more limber. I need to figure out how to get some air in me. So it's going to have ideas. Beautiful sound. Now it's got a little air, right? Now it's starting to think like, okay, maybe I can actually do this. And it gets more ideas. It starts asking friends, hey, how can I achieve this? Like, what are my other balloon friends I can learn from to how to get some more air in me? It's got some momentum. It's going a little bit more, and it might fly. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Buffer for being the first time it's doing something. Boom, done. But then sometimes it just doesn't fly. Sometimes we do all the work necessary to actually go for something bigger than we were capable of, but we're too afraid. We're holding on to something. Something's holding us back that we didn't even realize sometimes. And we're too afraid. We have all the tools that we need, all the air we need, but we're too afraid to go anywhere with it. I know a lot of people are in different phases of life, and we all go through different phases of life. Some people are negative Nathans, and you're standing on the sidelines, and you're too afraid of what might happen if you step onto the court and actually try something. If that's you, it's time for you to get in the game. Commit to taking a step. Some of us are pessimistic caterpillars. We've been crawling around so long that we're starting to just believe this is all life is, and it can't get any better. We can't have transformation. We can't grow wings. We're a slimy bug. But if you commit to the goo phase, commit to allowing yourself to be melted down so that you can rebuild, then you can grow your wings. So commit and be okay being in the goo phase. And then others are like this balloon, fully capable, max air, done the work, and just haven't been able to let go yet. So if that's you, you have to let go, and the sky's the limit. Thank you.